Hello everyone, and we are back for another chapter call for the fanfic. The last finishing touches are being put on the second Samwell chapter. It should be out relatively soon, and the third Hota chapter is still being put together. But let's try to tackle Jaime 2. So if you remember last time, Jaime was kidnapped by the Brotherhood Without Banners, and in this chapter we'll find that he is at the Hollow Hill and will come face to face with Lady Stoneheart, where he will be put on trial. In many ways, this chapter is similar to Aria 6, A Storm of Swords, where the Hound is put on trial, but let's also keep in mind that the Brotherhood Without Banners has changed, and so their personalities will match the epilogue of A Storm of Swords or Brienne ate a feast for crows. And I should mention that Jaime 2 and Cersei 2 are going to be twin chapters in a sense. Both are going to deal with trials by combat. This doesn't necessarily mean that the chapters have to be too similar, but some information that Jaime reveals could be reinterpreted or recontextualized in Cersei 2. So let's get into it. The first part of the Jaime chapter will be a dream. So our story opens with Jaime in darkness, going in and out of dreams and sleep, not knowing what is real and how much time has passed. At times his hand is there, at times it's gone, and once he dreamed that his left hand was gone as well. His cell is nothing more than an alcove of dirt and rock, and a thatched door of weirwood roots keeping him inside. It's small and cramped, and it's not large enough for him to lie down with his legs extended. He twists and turns, never comfortable, never sleeping long. The only light comes when a guard with a torch brings him gruel or to change his bucket. Sometimes it's a thin man with gray hair, that is, Notch. At other times it's a clean-shaven man, that is, beardless Dick. Neither ever say a word. At times he imagines himself in the bowels of Casterly Rock, and hears wails. Sometimes he thinks he hears Tassels, a fool that disappeared when he was young, or the twisted son of Stafford Lannister that everyone insisted was stillborn, or the bastard sons of Tarbeck and Rain who never dwelled with their trueborn kin. But he then realizes it's none of them. The wails are his own. Jaime finds himself remembering the last time he wailed like this. It was when she died. He thinks it's strange that he can barely remember her face, but he remembers the pain well enough. He had descended into the bowels of Casterly Rock that day so his father wouldn't see him, nor anyone else who might tell him that his son had wept. Jaime cried for hours, it felt like, there in the blackness. Cersei had found him there. He wasn't sure how, but she had. She always claimed that she could feel where he was. "I'm alone," he managed to say between wails and gasps. "Don't be stupid," she snapped back. "You can never be alone. We will always be together." The memory then shifts and the two are older, in the throes of passion. "We will always be together," she murmured. "Swear it. Swear it." Suddenly the inside of Cersei feels different. He had never been with anyone else, but somehow he knew it was a different woman. Her golden hair shifts to red, and he realizes that he's now with Catelyn Stark. "Swear it," she says. "I swear," Jaime calls out. And then we come to part 2. Lem Lemoncloak. And in this section, we'll bring in Lem, who, yes, is Richard Lonmouth. In this section, feel free to add any backstory on Lem and Rhaegar, the war, Harrenhal, anything. Essentially, this section will begin with someone yelling, "Shut up, Kingslayer, before I kick your teeth in." Jaime sits up, confused, squinting at the light. When his eyes adjust, he sees a big man on the other side of the weirwood roots in a yellow cloak. The face is familiar, but Jaime can't quite place it. He says, "I know you. You're a knight, long dead." Lem will say, "Aye, I'm Beric Dondarrion." "No, you were his man," Jaime realized, "lost at the Trident." The yellow-cloaked man nods and says that Robert would have hanged him for not choosing his side. The wall is cold and foreign tongues make his head hurt, so he chose to hide on Quiet Isle with some others. After some years, he left, bearded and reborn, Lem Lemoncloak. He was no fancy tourney knight like Jaime. Far from the Stormlands, it was simple to be of the simple folk. Jaime then asks, "And now what, you serve the Hound?" "Clegane," Lem laughs. "The dog's been put down, like you soon enough. The helm is mine, and it'll be the last thing you see, Kingslayer. I'll be the one killing you." All for some spell, Jaime wonders. Lem then says that the only magic will be the warmness in his heart, but the others might call it justice. "We'll be executing you for your crimes. It's a shame we can't kill you 1,000 times over. We would have hanged you earlier, but Mother Mercy wanted to see it with her own eyes. and we wouldn't deny her that. She's back now. And in part 3, we'll meet the Brotherhood and Lady Stoneheart. The door of Werewood Roots is opened, and Jaime is dragged into a larger room by Lem. A huge fire pit is dug in the center of the floor, and there he looks around at all the faces in the room. It's a confusing scene for him. A lot of people that have no business being together. He sees a little girl, that is Jane Heddle, and Sir Cedric Payne's squire, the one he saw running around at court, that is Podrick. Next to him he sees a big knight in a white surcoat with the arms of House Hunt, that is Sir Hyle, and Jaime wonders why the knight is so far from home. He spots his jailers, and the one-eyed man he fought in the night, and the Northman. He was one of Ned Stark's guards, he remembers. Somewhere in the back he sees the top of a head, blonde hair, and wonders if it's Brienne. And then he sees a thin man. Thoros of Myr, Jaime calls out. And here we want a dark and funny exchange between the Brotherhood and Jaime that is similar to the exchange between the Hound and the Brotherhood in Arya 6. Now it's up to you to write this dialogue, but remember, it has to be witty and dark. Jaime is funny and biting, and remember the Brotherhood has descended into being real bastards who think murder is funny. Eventually, Lady Stoneheart will emerge from the darkness, her hand still clutching Robb's crown. Jaime is silenced and confused, not knowing what he's looking at. Thoros translates and says that Jaime swore to not take up arms against Stark or Tully, yet he still schemed to murder her son. Jaime will still be in shock, but he will refute the charge. He knew nothing of the Red Wedding. "My father did that," he will say. "My father did that," the one-eyed man will repeat mockingly. That's what the oaf Merritt said too, right before we strung him up. But Milady was there. She heard. Thoros will say that Roose Bolton said it. Jaime Lannister sends his regards. Right before he killed the young wolf. The jape rings familiar to Jaime, but he can't remember precisely what he said to Bolton. He counters that sending regards is far from conspiring murder. Besides, Roose Bolton has never spoken truth in his life. The man aligned himself with the brave companions, and took my hand, and then turned his cloak and feigned innocence to my father. Thoros will then translate that Jaime threatened to throw Edmure's child into the air with a trebuchet. Jaime will realize that there's a spy at Riverrun, perhaps Pretty Pia or Little Lou. Jaime will say it was a feeble bluff about a boy yet to be born. Someone will then say that Jaime has admitted to being a liar by his own words. How do they know he's not lying now? Jaime says that unless they have a witness within his mind, they will never know. And then he demands a trial by battle. And as a cripple, he is afforded the right to a champion. And the room erupts in laughter. Lem will explain that Merritt demanded a trial by battle as well. That was all Beric Dondarrion. They were a waste of time, and they don't do them anymore. Jaime then berates the room as pathetic and weak. They stand for nothing, and will be forgotten to history like all the other faceless brigands. Jaime knows that he must goad them into giving him a trial, but he also notes that if Sir Richard is his opponent, he'll be killed immediately. He recognizes Harwin, and knows that he's just a household guard. They spend most of their days standing rather than training. If he can provoke Harwin into battle, angry and stupid, instead of Lem Lemoncloak, he may have a better shot at surviving. And so he starts insulting Northerners and how they'd given up their old gods for a god of fire. He slips in insults about Jory and Ned Stark. Harwin then begs Lady Stoneheart to allow him to kill Jaime, and Stoneheart nods. And then we get to part 4, the trial by combat. Swords and shields are fetched for Jaime and Harwin. As with the Hound, there's no armor. They allow Jaime his hand back so he can use a shield. As his hand is being strapped back on, he begins thinking about Brienne's advice, whether he can exploit his left-handedness to give himself an advantage. Though in the end, he doesn't think it's going to be helpful. He supposes getting stabbed by Harwin is a better death than being hanged like Merritt. And then he remembers sparring against Merritt. The man was mediocre with the sword at best, and he didn't fight with honor. He was always trying cheap tricks to give him an edge. And it's here we're going to get into the battle. Make it about 9 or 10 paragraphs if you can. Harwin will have a flaming sword, of course. And Jaime should remember 3 or 5 dirty tricks that Merritt Frey used to employ. Some ideas are striking first before your opponent is ready, calling for a timeout and then attacking, telling your opponent to look behind them at something, striking high and then going for the testicles. But after Jaime's shield is torn from his hand, the dirty trick that's going to win the fight for him is that Jaime's going to dip his golden hand into the fire and throw cinders at Harwin's face. In the end, Jaime wins and kills Harwin. Jaime smashes in his face with his golden hand. Lady Stoneheart will hiss, and Thoros will announce that Jaime has defeated her champion, but Lady Stoneheart has demanded a trial by 7. Her second champion will be a rope. The Brotherhood grabs Jaime, they put a noose about his neck, and everyone goes outside heading to a crooked willow to hang him. Jaime is mocked, pushed, laughed at. Just as they arrive at the tree, they hear a screech. Everyone looks back to see Brienne, Sir Hyle, and Podrick, each on horses. And before them, kneeling, is Stoneheart. She's been beheaded mostly. Her head hangs off her shoulder by only a little bit of flesh. And yet, the body doesn't fall over. Instead, its hands reach out, grab the head, and move it back atop its neck. Then Stoneheart blinks and stands back up. Brienne then yells, "Run!" And that's it. Good luck writing, and we'll see you next time.